pjnet.tv. It is 9 p.m. on the East Coast, but our guest is not on the East Coast. She is in the great Republic of Texas, and she is a first-time guest. Our bumper's running, we're recording, we're streaming. We're going to count it down to Studio 20, starting now. Well, good evening and welcome to pjnet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick. I know it's kind of hard to figure out who our guest is going to be tonight, but our guest comes to us from the Republic of Texas, where they have suffered some very severe weather in the past day, which means we'll be getting it, well, tomorrow here in Florida. So, in any event, I actually feel that we are very fortunate, especially fortunate. Tammy Whitehurst joins us from her crowded home, which she'll tell you about in a moment. But folks, Tammy is a coach and a motivational speaker for the kingdom of Christ. But she's busy. I looked at her. We'll talk more about that later. Tammy, it's in a quiet room. It's almost as if no one else is there, but I know that's not true.
You know what, Mark? That is far from true, because I'm in East Texas, and last night we had some tornadoes come through here. Well, several of my family members are without electricity, so they're in my house. They're just in different parts of the house so that I could be with you tonight. You know what? You got to love Texas people. We will work with you, let me tell you. And they're working with me.
Well, it's great that you are hospitable enough to take them on. But, you know, families like fish, they're fine, but they begin to stink after about 3 days.
Wow.
So hopefully the power will get back on and you'll be on your way. Tammy is not an author per se. Now, you might want to mention you have. It's not that you've never written anything, but you don't really sell books. You're not published. Yet here you are on pjnet.tv. You were once a middle school teacher, and you just woke up one morning and decided no more. You're going to do something else.
You know, actually, I started in the middle school classroom, and I absolutely love middle school kids. Give me 11 and 12-year-olds all day long. Well, what that was my first audience. You know, and I always knew that I would not retire from the classroom. Well, God changed my audience, and after about 10 years, I actually began doing public motivational speaking. And what I learned in the middle school classroom was if you could make them laugh, they would learn anything you wanted to teach them.
Really?
And so, yes, you know, humor has a way of pulling people together. And I would do it in the middle school classroom, and that just transfers over to what I do now. God didn't change what I do. He just gave me a different audience. But I absolutely love people. And I love making people laugh. Mark, what I've learned, especially in the last 2 years, is that there are two things that bring people together: grief and sadness, or laughter and humor. And let me tell you, I want to fall on the humor and laughter side, because we've certainly had enough grief in the last 2 years.
How long ago was it, Tammy, when you embarked on this mission?
Well, I've been speaking full time for about right at about 9 or 10 years now. But I have been. I left the middle school classroom. Oh, let's see. Gosh, it's been a long time. You know, time just has a way of sneaking up on us. But I know I started speaking in 2008. So
okay.
I went to seminary, and then I actually hit the ground running. You know, I've always been like a bull going through a gate. I buck. And you know, us Texas people, we actually have that reputation. My friend Kathy said of me one time, she said, Texas twang with a smidgen of yeehaw and a whole lot of truth. A candid conversation gone full throttle. And let me tell you, I love to have those kind of conversations.
Well, Tammy, I'm interested. You say you hit the ground running, and I find that interesting. I'm very skeptical in a way, because okay, here you are, you have no clients, You get out of seminary, you print up some business cards, and people just start ringing your phone off the hook, right? Is that how it happened? How did you get from there to where you are now?
It doesn't happen overnight. I will say, yes, I do have a packed schedule. I'm pretty much somewhere at least once or twice, a lot of times in a weekend, but but it doesn't happen overnight. You're right. What I began to do at the beginning was people would ask me to speak for little things that they were doing, gatherings and things like that. And I'm going to tell you, word of mouth advertising is the best advertising. And from one would come another and would come another. And then I hosted a conference myself
Hmm.
where I actually brought in other speakers. I spoke also, but I brought in other speakers, musicians, and it was a big women's conference. And from that, I began to get invitations. And honestly, whenever, anytime that as a speaker you are on a stage, there is a lot of possibility, a lot of opportunities that somebody who is in your audience is going to invite you to another one. So that is just how it's worked. Word of mouth has been the best thing for me. I had an agent, I've had two agents, and they did wonderful stuff for me. But I will honestly tell you that most people want to talk to the speaker themselves before
Hmm.
they hire. That's what
Hmm.
they want to. So most of my bookings come through my computer on my phone, and I answer my own emails. So that's how it's worked for me, and I am thankful. I'm very thankful that God has given me the schedule that He's given me. People tell me all the time, Tammy, you got to slow down.
Hmm.
Let me tell you,
No.
Mark.
No,
You
you
know,
won't hear that here.
let me just say, I have always hit the ground running. People ask my mama all the time, has she always been like that? And my little mama will just shake her head, yes, because I have always looked in a forward direction. What could happen? What can
Hmm.
happen? I firmly believe the impossible is possible with God. And I love to help other speakers and writers and musicians. I love to help other people go forward.
Tammy, it sounds to me like the turning point in the trajectory, of your career took a sharp upward trend when you hosted your own women's conference, and I admire you for that. But I also know that that is a high degree of risk. You're putting out money now, and there's no guarantees. And I know that maybe you're an author, maybe you're a speaker, a blogger, whatever. There are times when we want to expand, increase our territory, as the prayer of Jabez. But to do that, you have to take risk. How scared were you when you did that?
You do have to take risks, Mark. But if we don't walk through that first door of opportunity, we are never going to see if there was a second door and third door and fourth door. A lot of times, I have learned in my lifetime that a lot of times we stop right before it's about to explode and it's going to get really good because we get tired and we get weary. And I'll be the first to tell you, I never get tired of what I do, but I do sometimes get tired in it.
Hmm.
But I never, ever get tired of what I do because I love what I do. Is there risk involved? You better believe it. Because on that first conference that I hosted myself, well, it didn't turn out. Let's just say it didn't. It didn't turn out the way I thought it would, but it turned out exactly the way it was supposed to. At For that first one, I ended up. I've always been a person who would jump out, and I'm not afraid to ask. And so I did get a couple of sponsors for that, and along with my own funding and everything. And then that hurricane that hit New Orleans, that was just awful in
Hmm.
2000. You know, and I mean slammed it. Well, we're in East Texas, so we felt some of that kind of stuff, and then people were evacuating this area toward us,
Hmm.
and so I mean conferences were canceling right and left. Everything was getting canceled, whether it was ball games or whatever. And I remember going in there and looking at the group, and I said, "Let's not cancel. Let's just do this." I still had a lot of people who had bought tickets and things like that, and they were canceling. But what that ended up being was a women's conference for all of these evacuees and the people who could get there. And that is exactly what that turned out to be. We still had our speakers. We had one person that was unable to show because she had to drive too far and the weather was too bad. But you know what? Just like tonight, and I'm here and I've got family in different parts of my house, the show still goes on. And so that's what we did. And through that, me and some of the other speakers and musicians, a lot of us were called to do things after that.
Mm-hmm.
And also, I am a co-director of a speakers conference called the Christian Communicators Conference.
Mm-hmm.
And I know people from all over the United States through that. And we will recommend each other a lot of times whenever somebody calls for a booking. If I'm booked that weekend, well, I know all of these speakers. So a lot of times I will recommend one that I know is going to do really well, and I'll recommend them. So when you get in that circle, all of a sudden the circle starts to broaden. Mark, one time somebody said to me, Tammy, I cannot believe that you would train your competition. I cannot believe that you're going to work yourself right out of a job. You're not going to have a full schedule because you're going to be giving it to everybody else. And what I said to this person was, no, I don't look at it that way. The way I look at it is collaboration, not competition. Mm-hmm. And I think that there's plenty of room for a whole lot of good speakers. And, this is the one thing that people are so scared to do, to get up and stand in front of people and to speak in front of a crowd. That is the number one fear. Oh, my goodness. I would be so excited if I was in an arena, that type of thing. It wouldn't make me scared. It would make me so excited. Mm-hmm. And whenever I get with those people who know what I do, understand why I do it, I tell you what, we don't compete against each other. We collaborate with one another. And that's what it's all about. So if you know who Bill Gaither is, you know who Bill Gaither is.
Never heard of him. No.
He is.
Yeah, do you know who Van Halen is or Elton John? Do you think that?
I do know who that is. But Bill Gaither is one of those people who has launched so many musicians. Mm-hmm. And at one point in my life, I told someone, I said, I'd love to be the Bill Gaither of speakers. And we just introduce people to people that I've come across and I've met this side of heaven that I want people to know about. So that's just how I do it, Mark. I'm all about collaboration, not competition, and that's what makes the difference.
Oh, I'm going to sneeze. Hold on. No, maybe not. I've seen you wearing your glasses. I've seen you with them propped up on your head. Are those actual ocular enhancement devices, or is that part of a costume?
No, they are my branding, yes, because I've worn red glasses for a long time, but these are real glasses.
Okay.
I need bifocals, and because I don't want to get bifocals, they go up and down and up and down a lot. At some point, I'm going to have to just break down and get bifocals. But right now, what I'm doing is making it work because I just don't think I'm old enough for bifocals yet.
Well, Tammy, I hate to be so brutally candid, but that point that you will need contacts might well be behind you, not in front of you. But nonetheless, you can deny it as long as you want. Give in. Life gets easier. I actually have progressive lenses, and that worked good for me, but it takes a little getting used to because you'll get kind of dizzy, the first time you put them on. Mm-hmm. And actually, if you do, I give this advice that if you don't go out and get these, but if you're going to get a prescription for your glasses renewed, they'll probably offer you this glare reducing feature. I don't know how much it costs because insurance covered it, but I took it and I'm glad that I did. Because so often when people get on camera, their eyes are just a blue haze, their glasses are. And so if you're going to get something new, consider that option because more and more people, especially I think COVID sort of was a catalyst that was needed in that way. that was a catalyst for people to actually start learning, doing Zoom, doing virtual stuff. But COVID for you, if you're a speaker, that probably took a toll on your bottom line, didn't it?
It did. As a matter of fact, I had a full year booked, and usually I'm booked into the next year as well. And I tell you what, whenever I had a heavy January, February, and the beginning of March, and then I tell you, whenever the nation shut down, good gracious, in a week, all of a sudden my bookings began to domino. I mean, it got to the point where it got to the point where I would answer the phone and they would go, Tammy, and I would say, you know what, it's okay.
I
I
get it.
know,
Yeah.
because I had 35 bookings cancel in about 2 weeks time. It just went domino effect. But then, Texas people, you know how we are. So by the fall, I was back on some small stages and I had some small audiences. I even had a couple of incognito audiences. They said, don't put it on your website, don't announce it, but if you'll come, we will have you. So but yes, it was devastating. And so when I started getting all of those cancellations, I did all the yard, I did so much yard work and I painted and I did all these kind of things that everybody else did. And then it came down to, okay, I got to get back to work. And so I had to learn how to do Zoom and I had to start doing conferences from my office.
Mm.
That wasn't easy, but COVID did have a way of stretching me and making me learn a whole lot. I had one group that actually said to me, we want you to do a funny conference from your office. Now, that was the most difficult thing I've ever done because when I get up on stage, I use a whole lot of humor because a merry heart does good like medicine, and we all need a whopping dose of that. And the hardest thing I've ever done was sit in my office, like where I am right now, and actually try to make people laugh that I cannot see, that I can't hear.
Right.
That was hard. And so I'm going to tell you, there were times whenever I had meltdowns, there were times when I wondered, oh my goodness, am I going to have to get out of this profession? But that's not at all what ended up happening. It actually opened up more doors whenever everything opened up, especially when Texas opened back up. It opened up more doors. I started teaching writers how to speak also. I started teaching at writers' conferences. And I've written 4 devotionals, but whenever I speak, I just take them with me and people buy them directly from me. I actually got one pretty close to being written during that time whenever you're sitting in your house by yourself and you're not going anywhere, not by yourself, my family's here, but you're not going anywhere. So I'm glad pretty much where I'm from, you don't see much of the staying at home anymore. It's pretty much here, which I'm so glad because I was so glad to get back with people. I will tell you, people were hungry to be around people again.
Right.
When you don't realize the power of hugging or handshaking or high fiving until you don't do that.
Tammy, you have. Well, let me ask you this: what's the largest crowd of humans? A real. What's the largest crowd you've spoken to?
Right at 2,500.
2,500. That's a lot. And recently, not going back to your old days, but let's say that somebody wanted you to speak and they've only got 12 people. What would you tell them?
I've always been the speaker who says, I'll come for whatever the crowd is. And the reason why I do that is because the way I look at that is whoever's supposed to be there will be there. When you're a speaker and you're on a stage, it's wonderful to have 2,500 plus people, but it doesn't always happen like that. Now it's awesome when it does because you get so much energy from
Right.
people,
Right.
and you can hear them and all that. But the smaller the group, as a matter of fact, this weekend I've got 2 speaking engagements, and one of them is a rather small group, not as small as 12, but it's a smaller group. and you can really do a whole lot more one-on-one, getting to know people when you have smaller groups. It's very, it's
Mhm.
different, but it's a good kind of different because you do build relationships that way.
Right. Well, you've been doing this, I think you said since 2008. So undoubtedly, now do you just fly in, get a limousine from the airport, show up on the stage, do your speech, and then get on the limousine and go? Or do
Well,
you stay?
well, let me tell you, I actually don't ever ride in a limousine. However, however, there's a first time for everything, I guess. I do fly a lot of places. Now, since COVID has hit, Texas has hired me primarily. I mean, most of
Mhm.
my bookings are Texas, and Texas is a big state, 13 hours from one side to the other. However, I still do fly. I was in Pennsylvania, Michigan. I go back to Michigan this year. I'm speaking in Michigan. And so, yes, I do fly, and I usually get picked up at the airport by strangers. But I'm one of those people who I'm not into all of that photoshopping on pictures and that kind of stuff because I'm going to tell you, Mark, I want to be recognized at the airport because I want to be picked up. You know,
You're too young to need that yet, but you may want to revise that view later. But anyway, if you've spoken in that many places to that many people, there's got to be some embarrassing moments.
hmm Oh, there's not some. There's a lot of embarrassing moments. Whenever you are on a stage every weekend, primarily, there's a lot of things that happen. There's embarrassing moments. There's moments that you'll never forget. There was one time I will go into two that just come to the top of my head. One, I was in front of a huge crowd in the Dallas Fort Worth area, and I prefer a microphone that goes over my ear. But you know what? You're just grateful for whatever you are given.
Hmm.
And so they all they had was a handheld with a cord.
Hmm.
Well, I'm telling you, I have always been one of those high heels and hallelujahs kind of gals. And so I'm just putting my stuff in high heels and I hit the cord and I go down. But I caught myself in plenty of time to pull myself back up and keep going. But let me tell you, you just keep rolling. That's what you do. It was in front of all these people, and it and women, and the women go ah, and the men laugh like what you're doing right now. But then something, I've had people have seizures in the audience, but let's see how it was 2 weeks ago. 2 weeks ago, I actually had somebody die in the audience when I was speaking. So when you just see all across the board, and what they told me to do was keep going. So it's what you do,
Hmm.
and the Lord gives you the strength to do what you do, and sometimes you have to detour it. I mean, when that woman died, I was throwing out funny stuff because I always bring them together with laughter at the beginning before I talk about the serious stuff. And
Hmm.
what they wanted was this girl talk where we just laugh and we talk about it. And I mean, all you're seeing thrown back heads and tonsils dangling and nostril tunnels and it's just awesome. And then all of a sudden, Mark, all of a sudden there was a stir. And I mean, there's just all these people moving in this one area. And I said, is something wrong? Do Is there something we need to do? And all of a sudden they looked up and I could tell that whatever it was bad. I said, we're going to pray. And so, I
Uh-huh.
mean, the entire, one minute we are laughing, the next minute
Hmm.
we are praying. And they told me, they said, keep going. So now I didn't pick back up with funny material. I
Right.
picked back up with more of a, well done, my good and faithful servant. We
Hmm.
finished strong. That's what we do because I'm going to tell you, this woman had just gotten up. She was up on the stage right before I stepped up. And
Oh.
yes, right before I stepped up, she was on the stage and she came down, took a seat, and she died. We, I would have never thought that. Never. We never know when our time is. But I'm going to tell you, I think that morning she had no idea that was going to be her last day.
Well, none of us do.
No, we don't. And but I do now. This could be totally wrong, but this is a Tammyism right here. I'm gonna say. I think that God looked at His Son Jesus and He said, "Today's the day she's going to come home." But I want you to sit right here and listen to what she is going to say about me and you.
Her last act was in
Yes,
service to the kingdom.
yes,
What if she would have been speaking after you? You know, these things, oh, I'm sure it was a coincidence, the order of the speakers, right? I'm sure it was.
yes,
Uh,
yes, yes.
Tammy, I'm enjoying talking to you. We've gone a little long. I wanted to ask you to share about Tammy and Friends.
Oh, I would love to. Tammy and Friends is a YouTube show that I have, and I also will run it on social media. And with Tammy and Friends, I interview people and we talk kind of like me and you are right now, Mark.
Mhm.
And we just talk about what God's done in our life, what we're doing, and what is the purpose for us being here. Because because one of the things that I'm often quoted saying is that cemeteries are filled with people who, with writers who never wrote, with speakers who never spoke,
Right.
with teachers who never taught, with singers who never sung, with laughter that was never shared, forgiveness never given, love never shown. Don't die with buried treasure. And so what I like to do is have people on Tammy and Friends who are trying to do exactly what they're supposed to do with their life. They started strong, they're staying strong, and they want to finish strong. And that's not saying that we don't fall flat on our face sometimes, because we do. But I think for every mess that we get ourselves into, there is a Messiah who is right there who can untangle every mess. That if I'm going to have you on my show, Mark, because I really want to put you in the hot seat one day. Because I want to hear all about you too. But
Well,
I want to connect. Mark, I also run a devotional 5 days a week on my Facebook page at Tammy Whitehurst Speaker. So I love people and love laughing with them. I love listening to them. I just love people.
Tammy, you may burn out, but you're not going to rust out. I can see that. Um, do you see yourself projecting this pace that you're on? How far into the future do you think you can do that? I mean, you're like a octopus on roller skates. I mean, you're just going everywhere. You know.
Thank you. And you know what? I've always been one of those ADD, have tons of energy type of gal. And I used to get in trouble when I was in school. I mean, I got licked from the principal. Well, licked means a spanking, you
Yeah,
know.
that's a paddling, folks. That's.
Oh, school's not bad school, but I used to get in trouble, all that kind of stuff, because I was never quiet, and I was always talking. I was always getting into something. I've just always had an abundance of energy, and I'm extremely thankful for that, because now I use that energy
Uh-huh.
in what I'm doing for the Lord. So I hope that I can keep on doing this. I have noticed that where I used to wear 5-inch heels, I'm down to about a three and a
Uh,
half.
mm.
However,
Yeah, but we got wireless microphones these days, so.
I'm 54 years old. I'll be 55 this year. And I love every single second of life. And you know what, Mark? We can't wait till life's not hard, till life's not
Yeah,
complicated,
man, yeah.
for the
I
perfect
know.
time. We'll run out of time. We know that.
And your treasures will be buried with you. I mean, and that's so profound what you said, because that's part of, I mean, you have things that are driving you that are similar to what's driving me. Now, what you don't know, what you will know in about 10 years, is you will experience that fourth quarter urgency, when you begin to realize, it's late. And you look back and you say all the laughs that you didn't share, all the words never written, all the deeds never done. Those things become more dominating in your thoughts, And for you to be doing it for as long as you've been doing it, and at your age, I'm encouraged. And I have watched a few episodes of Tammy and Friends, and we are on a similar mission. I just want to encourage people to share, but they're scared to death. And then afterwards, invariably, without exception, they say, you know what? That was easy. That wasn't so bad. I can do that. So, folks, if you're watching this and that screen one day might have you on it, don't listen to that voice. Or you're going to hear that voice. Oh, I can't do that. Where, Tammy, you're a Bible scholar. You've been to seminary. Where in the Bible is God's voice saying you can't do that?
I've never read that.
I haven't either.
What I've read, Mark, is that the impossible is possible with God.
I know.
And what I've read is that there is a time for everything. And, one day, Mark, I know we're running out of time. I'm going to say this real quick. One day, what we don't want to do is walk into, on the day that whenever we enter the gates of heaven, we don't want to walk into this room and there's all these beautiful packages up on the wall, wrapped beautifully with bows on them. And we look at God and we say, what is this? Because he walks us into this massive room with all these gifts and everything. And he looks at us and says, that's every gift that I gave you that you never opened up and used.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of things we can do if we will step outside of fear. And God tells us, without fear, I am with you.
Amen. Tammy, I tell you, we could go on. I never put your website up there, so I'll put it up there now. It's TammyWhitehurst.com. Tammy, and I also want to thank you because, we reach out to people here at PJNet to have them share. And anytime you go to a website and use that contact us thingy,
yeah,
it's almost like you're just putting a message in a bottle on the ocean and hoping it'll land, very seldom. But you were very responsive, and that's, for someone in demand as much as you are, I think that's a testimony to the sincerity of your ministry. And I hope that you are able to continue that practice and that legacy, because so often as people begin to climb that ladder of celebrity or influence, I'm talking about, demand, they become less and less and less accessible. And they're only accessible by their inner core group, and you've got to go through somebody else to get to them. And they've got these gatekeepers. We've worked with United States congressmen, and we've even had the governor of Texas. But it's all right. Here's what I'll end with this, because we've been very long-winded. You all have been so long-suffering and patient. But listen to this, please. We work hard to gain the ear. All of us do. Of some influential person that can help us in our careers, our plans. That person may be a publisher. That person may be a political figure. But these people are hard to get the ear of. I know people that have paid money to have interviews, with publishers and things like that at these conferences. These are powerful and influential people. And we want them to help us. God is far, far more powerful. And we so seldom go straight to our daddy, whose ear is already bent toward us, hoping to hear from us. Folks, the keys to your success in what God has for you to do is not found in some influential person that you need to open up these new opportunities. Our sovereign God has plans for each one of us. He says so in Jeremiah 29:11. Now, I believe it. I live it. It's either true or it's not. So if it's true, rely on it. If it's not true, well, good luck. Do how you want. I can't really offer you any help. And I hear some climate change on our tin roof above us, so that must be our hint. Tammy, what a joy it has been to have you share, and it's not over. Thank you for the opportunity to be on your program, and I encourage you folks to find Tammy and Friends on YouTube. It's in many ways it's kind of like what we do here. It's just two people, two brothers, sisters in Christ, just sharing the joy of the Lord in our lives. Tammy, you're wonderful. Thank you for being here. We've really enjoyed it.
Thank you for having me.
Glad.
Thank you. Nice meeting you.
Glad to do it. All right. Well, folks, I know we went way long on that, but wasn't that good? I enjoyed that, and pardon the rain, folks. I'll get up a little closer. Before I leave, we'll be back tomorrow night, as always, and about 9 o'clock. But between now and then, I have a challenge that I'd like you to take seriously. You only have to ask yourself these two questions. First, what is the boldest thing that you've ever done for the kingdom of Christ? Now, I hope it doesn't take you too long to come up with something, but maybe it does, maybe it doesn't. But no matter how quickly you come up with that answer, the second question is probably going to set you back. Here it is. How long ago was that? You just heard a fireball for Jesus Christ. I am encouraged. I am empowered by her enthusiasm and boldness. Here's the challenge, folks. Whatever your answers are to those two questions, never be satisfied with them.